Hi guys, just a quick video. I'll probably post a few over the next few days. It's Easter here in the US and I've got a couple of days off, so I thought I might knock out a board game. We might also play some 15mm as well, but Charlie's still at school. Unfortunately, unlike me, he's got no break. So I was considering having a go at Wacht am Rhein, the Battle of the Bulge game by Decision Games, part of the GOS series. But watching one of the really good videos up on YouTube at the moment, wow, that's looked complicated, and I did go as far as downloading the latest version of the rules, because this set probably I've got here is a game I must have bought 8 or 9 years ago. It's punched but never played. The new version of the rules were nearly 200 pages long, and watching the YouTube video I thought that just looked a bit daunting. So more recently I bought KORSUN Pocket 2. This is a large encirclement game when the first and second Ukrainian fronts encircled some of Army Group South, and it was the first major encirclement of German forces post Stalingrad. I had this game probably about 40 years ago, and Jack Radley has in the last year or two produced a more updated version of the game. Very similar, just slightly tidied up map, some simplified logistics rules, and just flicking through the rule set for this. It's got quite a decent level of detail, but nothing compared to Wacht am Rhein. So we're going to have a go at this one. Let's have a look at it. I'm just starting setup at the moment. So here we are, I've got the game out on my game table, and you need a lot of space. So this is half of the game. There are 4 maps for the complete encirclement. This is the, I guess it would be the, is it the, north slash western flank of the game. And there would be another 2 maps over there on the floor of the eastern flank. There are scenarios that allow you to play the east and western flank. So I, just for the sake of space and reaching across a nearly 10-foot wide map, didn't seem great fun. I thought I'd go for half of one of the earlier scenarios in the game, which just requires half the maps. So we'll have a go at this one. This is a very one-sided scenario per the instructions. Russians have got a lot of advantages here, but we'll see how it plays. Just show you what we've got as some of the components. I really love this. So this is a map of the game board, and you don't get a massive list with hex locations. You get the dispositions of the army units marked on the map, and you get army deployment cards that show you all the units that make up each division. And then you get freely to deploy. So for example here, 167th Division, you can choose which units you place where, as long as they're behind that front line, and you're exerting a set of zones of control that cover off that frontline area that's marked on the map. So we've done some of the deployment, and I'll show you what that's looking like at the moment. We haven't deployed the main Russian strike force, which I think is the 6th Guards Tank Army, so we've yet to put that on the table. But you have to deploy the Germans first. So let's have a look at the German position here. So we've got the Dnieper River up here on the northern part of the game map. That was the position that Army Group South was trying to hold, but other Russian breakthroughs have already crossed the river. So on this northern flank, you've got a set of fortified positions. Germans only holding this flank at company strength, and they're facing off against 1 Russian division there. And then as we go down towards the south, we've got a bunch of fortified areas. Sorry for those reflections from the lights above the table, but it's quite a dark day here, so I do need the lights on. And the game map is under the glass that sits on this table, so a nice way to protect the game map and stop everything getting knocked, but it will cause a few reflections. Sorry about that. And we've got some fortified areas down here, which are Russian equivalent company level units, again in fortified positions. So don't expect that front to move much. And then as we go through the bulk of the German position, we do have an isolated and surrounded Russian unit here in the village of Tishkonovka. That was a result of a previous Russian attack that had been defeated, and there are just a few remaining Russian units holding out in that village there. Otherwise, on the main front line, this is protected by the 198th Infantry Division, then the 198th Infantry Division, then the 34th Infantry Division, and then the 75th Infantry Division. So we have three German divisions as part of this defensive position. Almost all of their units are on the front line. We have some assault guns, for example, here and here in tactical reserve. And we have a small reserve for the 7th Corps, which is 2 regiments strong, 2 battalions strong, the 158th Regiment, also in reserve. So the German forces are very stretched, 3 divisions facing off against this Russian attack. And we have elements of the 27th Army Group and the 40th Army Group that are in the front line of the potential Russian attack. And as you can see, there's a very thick line of counters here. We've got the 232nd, the 38th, the 74th, the 133rd, the 58th, the 359th, the 167th, the 33rd Guards, and the 180th, and the 337th. So what's that? Probably nearly 10 Russian divisions facing off against 3 German divisions. And this is simply the Russian breakthrough force. As I say, we have the 6th Guards tank army, which will deploy on the map in this space here as the breakthrough force. Basic objectives for the Russians is to break through along this axis to meet up with the Russian forces that would be coming on from the breakthrough from the other flank of the German position. These dug-in artillery markers I'll replace, but I've just popped them down here so I can look at the objectives that the Russians have got. So they need to break through, capture Medvin, cross this river, the Gnilai-Tirsh River, or at least swing down and use it to protect their right flank and capture the Nogorovka down there. So that's the direction of the main Russian breakthrough. Haven't yet deployed all these counters down here. They're the 40th Army artillery. I wanted to see where the Russian objectives were before I deployed my artillery to support the breakthrough. So I'll get on with some deployment and then show you a bit of the game as it unravels. And I'll also have a look at this video, see how the glare works, or the glare is coming out, and whether it's going to be okay to watch. Alright guys, hope you enjoy this. See you in a sec. Okay guys, I've now finished deploying, and wow, the counter density for the Russians has just gone bonkers. So our front line has now been reinforced. You can see all those 802 counters, so they are short range guards mortar, so Katyusha units, along a lot of this front line. They only have a range of 2 hexes, so they're all stacked with my assault battalions. We've also brought in supporting heavy artillery batteries, such as the 33rd Heavy. Where are the 33rd Heavy? Can I get them in camera shot? Yes, it's difficult to get these in focus and get the camera in exactly the right place. Anyway, yeah, there you've got the 25th Heavy, you've got the 33rd Heavy there in the centre of the shot, and you can see I have deployed my 6th Guards tank army as well. So here we've got the 5th Motorised Corps with its Shermans and heavy assault tanks, and behind that in echelon to the rear, the slightly weaker 5th Guards Tank Corps, which had already sustained quite a lot of losses before this particular offensive starts. So massive concentration of Russian breakthrough forces here, looking to smash their way across. I've switched those entrenched targets with just little arrows, which technically for units in column, but they're just to remind me of my Russian objectives. All right, well, there's the deployment. I'll probably do a quick commentary at the end of each turn. I think the first few turns will take an inordinate length of time as I get to know the rules. But if you're interested, please keep watching and have a look at the next video as we play game turn 1 of KORSUN Pocket 2. Cheers, everyone. All right, so the massive Russian attack is going in on the 25th of January AM. It's a foggy turn, so visibility is only 1 hex for units and for spotting for artillery and so forth, because the fog is in play and the Russians are pushing very much forward with the full weight of their infantry attacks. So as you can see here, we've moved the 180th Division forward, and you can see all their Katyusha rockets waiting to fire support. The 167th has exploited a small gap in the German lines here to start half penetration as they attack elements of the 198th German Division. The 359th has moved forward as well, and then we have attacks against potentially the shoulder of the penetration as the 58th, supported by the 15th and 18th Guards Artillery Regiment, attacks the 34th Division. And otherwise, we are leaving the rest of these units not yet into combat, as we'll want to deploy them, hopefully to protect our flank. And we still have the 5th Guards tank and the 5th Mechanized waiting to move forward, and a mass of artillery to fire. So we're going to start with Russian counter-battery fire, and we'll see how effective that is for disrupting the German defensive fire. Okay, so with observation of only 1 hex, none of our forward Russian units are yet in sight. This one is close here, but none are within 1 hex of any defending German artillery, so there will be no counter-battery fire. We'll probably move on next to defensive barrages by the Germans as they try and disrupt these swarms of attacking Russian units. We'll have to work out what's more effective: final protective fire, where you drop artillery effectively onto your own position, or defensive barrages. We'll start, I think, trying to do defensive barrages and see how they do. Okay, so a quick example here. So the 198th, this 105mm battery, is going to fire against units attacking the 1st Battalion, 326th Regiment. And we're going to try and target the engineers of the 180th. You pick 1 unit, 1 battery will fire on. You can fire up multiple units into 1 hex, but only 1 set of fire against each unit. So we're going to fire at the engineers because those engineers will help the Russians attacking the fortified positions, those square or solid boxes around the 1st 326th, you can see marked on the map. They represent a fortified hex. So we're going to try and take out those engineers because that will help the Russian assault, and that hopefully will give a disproportionate advantage to the Germans. So let's fire those. Actually, just correcting myself there, you have to do all your attacks against each enemy unit. So you have to fire, you can add, I believe, several artillery batteries together to attack 1 unit. If you want to attack the 2nd element in the stack, you have to do a separate set of firing. So we're actually going to fire 2 105mm batteries, these 2, both from the 1 to 98th Division against those engineers. That gives us 4 strength points and fighting against a defensive value of 1 for the engineers. So prima facie an attack of 4, and we'll just see what weather conditions and other things do against that attack. Okay, so there'll be no modifiers in the attack against this engineer, so it's a 4-to-1 attack. The engineers are in the open. Let's see what we do. We roll a 1, not great, so that causes, on the face of it, a retreat 2 for the defenders and 1 step loss. But because it's artillery, you don't take any negative results, so no impact there from that defensive fire by the Germans. Let's move on and do some more. Okay, so given the potential Russian breakthrough as they're pushing through this gap in this lines, 2 more German artillery units are going to fire on the 520th of the 167th Division, the 1st Battalion, and another 2 units will fire against the 3rd Battalion. Both have a strength of 4.
There's a lot of defensive units there. We might double up that artillery up to make that 8 points of fire, and we'll simply fire at the left-hand unit if we have enough artillery in range. Actually, I'm just looking at the results table and realise that I got my interpretation of the results wrong. A low score is good in this game. So that was actually a D2 with 1 step loss on the engineers. So this engineer unit has to retreat 2 steps and take 1 step loss. I think it's only got 1 step. So actually that engineer was destroyed in that previous set of fire. All right, now we'll do the firing at 1-to-1 against this unit here, the first 520th. Let's see what we get. Again, low scores are good. A 4, so that won't be too great on a 1-to-1. That is an attacker retreat 1. So correctly interpreting this table this time, that's no effect from that artillery, but we will take those engineers. Okay, so it's now time for the 34th to do its defensive fire. We only have 2 batteries in the 34th Division, a 150 and a 105 battalion, and they're going to have a go at this unit here, the 2nd Battalion, 170th Regiment of the 58th, because we've got 3 units against the side of that defending German unit. Strength points of 5. We've only got an attack value of 4. We might throw in the 5th Corps 170mm battery as well. So that gives us an attacking value of 9. It'd be great to have another 1 point of artillery, but we don't have any other divisional artillery in range. I think I'll save that 170mm gun and just hit with 4 points. So this would be 1 to 2. We roll a 3. So on 1 to 2 and on a 3, again, no impact from that fire. All right, now we'll move on to defensive fire by the 75th. Actually, we've decided not to fire on this occasion, as those ones I don't think will cause sufficient casualties to be worthwhile. We do have this 170mm battery from the 7th Corps Artillery Reserve with a range of 15 to zero in on somewhere. Let's have a look where we're going to fire. Okay, so heavy artillery will ignore dug-in markers, so if there's any units in towns or dug-in markers, it's worth firing that 5-point heavy artillery against them, and it will be on a 1-to-1 attack roll. So we're going to go for this unit here. The 2nd of the 270th, again, it's one of our exposed divisions with 3 attacks potentially going in against it. And we roll a 4 at 1-to-1. I don't think that will be anything. No effect. All the German defensive fire is done. We still potentially have some final protective fire over here on the right flank, but doesn't look like we're going to use that this turn, as there's probably not going to be any attacks over there. Right, that's it for defensive fire. Now the massive weight of Russian artillery will open up. All of our Katyushas, rocket forces, and supporting artillery batteries that the Russian army have moved up will fire away, and they have double effect because they have effectively offensive supplies for the first 2 game turns. So double effect for the Russian artillery. Let's see what damage they do when they go onto offensive barrage. Okay, so first attacks of the Russian offensive will start with 180th Division. Firstly, we're going to do some Sokov fire against the engineering battalion there that's on the left-hand side of the hill, so we don't have to close assault it. We're going to fire this artillery battery here against them. They've got 3 barrage points. They're firing at a fortified hex on a hill. They're not heavy artillery, so it will have full effect. And let's see what that does. So a hill has no effect, needless to say, on combat, but a fortified hex halves artillery, and by the look of it, defender is also doubled. And I'll just check that to make sure that those are cumulative. Yep, by the look of it, both apply. So the defender's value will actually go up to 8 in that square, as it's fortified, and our attack strength is halved, so 3 goes down to 1. 1 to 8 is not a valid odds, so we have to get to at least 1 to 4. Let's see if there's any other artillery we can throw in. I can't see any obvious ones from the division that's engaged in the combat. Perhaps we're going to have to attack that square ourselves. Yeah, I think we're going to have to do that. Perhaps we should have moved the 337th up in support. I should have done that, but I didn't. So we're attacking with 1 point of artillery and 4 points of infantry against a strength of 8. So that's a 1-2 attack. This probably won't go well for the Russians, with no modifiers for armor. What other modifiers do we? I don't think we'll get any other modifiers for this one. So the 2nd 86th of the 180th Division has no regimental support because it doesn't have another battalion from the same regiment in the same hex. The Germans can get regimental support from an adjacent hex, but the engineers have an infantry battalion regiment, so that will not provide an engineering support. So it'll simply be 5 strength points against 8, so that's 1-2. What do we roll? We roll a 5. That won't be good for the Russians. So on 1-2, we take 1 step loss, and we have to fall back 2 hexes. I think we will take that retreat result rather than any further losses. If anyone's been watching, you might be shouting at me. I didn't double the artillery strength. Would have made no difference to the result. It would have still been 1-2, but it would have been halved for firing into a fortified hex, but doubled because we've got offensive ammunition supply this turn. Okay, so we're going to attack with the 1st of the 86th now. Let's see what else is in their hex. 2nd 86th Regiment of the 180th Division. So we will get a regimental support bonus for the Russians. We're going to fire our Katyusha rockets into this hex. They are doubled to 16, but halved because we're firing into a fortified hex. So that will give us 8 and 16 against 12, but we will have a regimental support combat shift. And we do have dug-in markers as well. We'll see if they're cumulative. Okay, so I can't see it in the rules, but I don't think you can get a dug-in bonus and a fortified bonus, as effectively a fortified bonus is an enhanced dug-in. So I'm going to play it that way. Do shout if you think I've got that wrong. So that was 8 plus 8, doubled then halved. So that's 16 points against 6, and with 1 regimental shift. So I'll take it from a 1-1 to a 2-1 attack for the Russians. Let's see what we do. Not a great dice roll on our first decent set of infantry results. So on 2-1, 6 is attacker takes 1 step loss and has to retreat 1 hex. I think we're going to stay in combat and we'll take 2 step losses because the Germans are forced to counterattack against any units that are in their zones of control. I'll need to check whether they have to do that out of fortified hexes. I'll check that, because if they do have to do it out of fortified hexes, no, I think we will stay there, because we're in a village anyway, so we've got a pretty decent position for the Russians. So they will take the extra step loss and stay in combat. All right, I'll do a few more attacks and let you know how the combat proceeds. Okay, so the Russians finished their first turn. We achieved some small breakthroughs here, some substantial pushbacks of the 34th by these units in the centre. We broke a bit of the German line here again on the southern end of the 34th. So the Germans are now moving only units that have been released, so the 7th Corps and the not the 88th, the 198th and the 34th Divisions may move. We've held this position on this fortified hill. There was a breakthrough in the centre here, but we've moved our stug up to support the units that are defending against the attack by the 180th Division here. We've moved the 1st Battalion 308th back across the river into that village. It was able to do that because the zones of control of the 1st 42nd don't extend into village hexes or across rivers, so they couldn't prevent the Germans from moving back there. And we're now continuing to move the rest of the front line to try and shore up their position for the second wave of Soviet assaults. Okay, so here we are at the end of the first turn. Let's have a look. So no movement on the flank up here, up against the Dnieper River, and all those fortified positions. But as we move down to the focus of the Russian assault. We see the attacks starting to go in. Starting here on the left, the 180th, supported by the 33rd Guards Artillery, has made some penetrations against part of that front line of the 198th. Some units are falling back, some are still in their fortified positions, and we've got one or two German units trying to dig in, having fallen back. On the right flank of the 180th, the 167th have also made progress, pushed the Germans back out of a couple of their fortified positions, and again, their units that have fallen back are also trying to dig in. And on the right flank of the 167th, we've potentially got a big gap here opening up in the centre of the German position, right before exploitation by the 5th Mechanised Corps, perhaps. So the 158th Regiment from 7th Corps Reserve has been rushed forward to occupy or try and occupy these positions. We've got one unit here and one unit here. First one is trying to dig in on the edge of that built-up area. And we've seen some of the 198th Artillery also pull back out of threat range. On the right flank, no real breakthroughs here. Some progress by the 58th on the far right, but you've still got that mass of Russian artillery able to pummel the right shoulder of the Russian penetration. I think fortunately for the Germans, the 15th Guards and 19th Guards and 18th Guards rocket brigades are now all out of range of the in their pre-positioned emplacements of the immediate German front line. So the weight of artillery fire in the afternoon of the first game turn will not be as severe. All right, well, I hope we enjoyed the morning of the first turn of the game of KORSUN Pocket 2. Still very early days, but that Russian firepower in turn 1 was pretty overwhelming, especially as I didn't use the heavy artillery rules for some of those rocket batteries early in the game. All right, we'll see you if you're up for it for turn 2.